The Fellowship of the Great Physician welcomes you to House Call. Our hosts today are doctors of chiropractic, Dr. Gerald Lala and Dr. Richard Jensen, who is also a board-certified acupuncturist, practice independently in North Oaks, Minnesota. Let's join our hosts for today's program that will assist you in your quest for optimum health and well-being.
Welcome to House Call. I'm Dr. Gerald Lala.
And I'm Dr. Richard Jensen.
It's wonderful to have you with us again on House Call. I think you're in for a wonderful program today. If you're watching on television, you see that the title of the program is, Are You Being Poisoned? And we're going to begin our discussion of minerals because there are good and bad minerals. There are minerals that are very toxic to the body. Sometimes we're not aware that we're ingesting them in foods or sometimes in some vitamineral products. So it's very important, very important. Many of the people that we do mineral biopsies on and mineral analysis, we find that they have high toxic metals, they have excessive levels of good minerals, or that they have deficiencies. And another term for minerals is electrolytes. And Dr. Jensen is going to begin our discussion of minerals or electrolytes.
Thank you, Dr. Lala. Well, minerals are any non-organic, homogeneous solid substance of the Earth's crust consisting of either positive or negative valence or electrical charge. And so what this really means is that we're looking at a particular element of the Earth's crust that has a charge that makes it electrically active within the body. They're usually known as cofactors that help reactions take place because of their added energy. Life is basically a transport of different electrical charges going on in the body, or at least that's the medium of life or energy that takes place. And so it's vital to over 300 life-sustaining activities that are going on. Now, one of the things is because of the environment that we live in, minerals are subject to contain toxic elements that are pulled out of the ground or pulled out of the environment along with them. And so whether they're uniquely pure or not, they're generally, because of the environment, they're going to bring along some impurities. And some of these impurities are very toxic to us. And so with trace minerals that are found in very small amounts within this can be very deleterious and can affect those 300 life-sustaining reactions in adverse ways. Another thing is that a lot of these chemicals, a lot of these minerals, in order to be absorbed and to be biologically active in our body, they need to be chelated or bound to a amino acid or kind of a protein building block to make them into organic compounds before they can be used. So then, as cofactors, these vitamins are derived from natural sources, commonly contain these cofactors. Well, cofactors, an example of those can be vitamin C, and the cofactor of bioflavonoids, like eating an orange that contains vitamin C, or citrus, or bioflavonoids. Now these things, they're cofactors as well. They allow certain processes to take place. Vitamin C, such as connective tissue in the body, we couldn't have any connective tissue unless we had vitamin C, and therefore that connective tissue being weak leads to things such as scurvy, which is a weakness in our skin and connective tissues of the body. It has to have vitamin C as a cofactor in order to allow that reaction to take place. So then, how these things are processed can affect how bioactive they are or whether they have been maintained, their chemical structure that helps them in the body. And by this, we look at things whether they are heat stable versus heat labile. So heat stable means that it can withstand heat, and heat labile means it cannot withstand the heat, or it's broken down, or it's no longer biologically active. It's no longer the same chemical due to the heat as changing it. So the heat that it's exposed to in the manufacturing, as well as the heat encountered during digestion, can change these things. And so let's look at some examples of these heat stabile elements or heat labile elements. The ones that are heat stable are most minerals are stable. So I mean, if you're cooking a rock doesn't generally get changed unless you're up there in the thousands of degrees, such as take place in the metal forges and so forth. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, these are really the fat-soluble vitamins, and they seem to stay heat stable or stay in their chemical formulations through the heat. Heat labile elements are the B complex vitamins or proteolytic enzymes, probiotics or intestinal flora and cofactors that can break them up. So if you think that you're getting your B complex vitamins and yet it's from a product that's been passed through the heat, these things are no longer the same chemical and have been broken down, and therefore they're no longer biologically active in your body. Proteolytic enzymes are enzymes that help us digest proteins, and they get broken down by the heat, such as maybe in the cooking process. Probiotics, which are actually living organisms that help us with the health of our intestinal tract. Those are also killed by the heat, which they're killing other nasty elements that you don't want growing in there. So it's part of the processing that takes place, as well as cofactors that can also be destroyed by the heat. So if they're using those for processing to create these particular vitamins and so forth, heating is fairly cheap to do, and therefore the elements cost less, but also offer less bioavailability to us. So fast versus slow growth of crops, Dr. Lala, how about with that? How does that change things for us?
It dramatically changed it. We should recognize that farmers are not paid for nutrient quality, but rather for the weight of the product, the volume of the product, in other words. Faster growing crops have less time to absorb nutrients. The higher the yield, the lower the nutrients generally. And the farmers aren't really the cause of the problem. It's the people that control them. It's these big agri-corporations that control them and force their standards upon them. For example, now, vitamin E and other antioxidants, such as like selenium or vitamin C, are the body's guardians against infiltration of toxins into our brains and nervous systems. And very often what happens to us is that based on the foods that we eat, they're either robbing Peter to pay Paul. And what do we mean by that? Where there are nutrient deficiencies, the body will rob other areas of the body to sustain life. For example, calcium and osteoporosis. If there's an inadequate intake and or absorption of calcium in the muscles, into our muscles and bones, the body will rob our bodies of calcium, therefore predisposing the body to osteoporosis. The same thing there would be with, for example, with our muscles, and that our heart is a muscle, a four-chambered muscle, and if we have a deficiency of magnesium or manganese, which the heart and all muscles really need in good quantities, then the heart is going to malfunction. But often, instead of looking at that person's electrolytes, such as manganese and magnesium and calcium, we just go and prescribe a drug. Or if we're into nutritional therapy, such as we as chiropractors who are nutritionally oriented, we can just say, well, here, take this calcium, take this manganese, take this magnesium, without assessing those minerals in their bloodstream and through urine and hair biopsies. Now let's talk about purity, toxin-free, organic food supplements. The most important food supplement is organic carbon-based. And they're a natural organic, which is not even as good as organic carbon-based, but hypoallergenic or non-allergenic and toxin-free products. Should therefore be certified by independent laboratory analysis to be free of toxic metals, hormones, pesticides, and herbicides. What does this mean then if we take this a little bit further? They must be scientifically proven to be free of synthetic, inorganic, inert, or dead and toxic substances, including additives, animal products, antibodies, artificial binders, caffeine, coatings, coloring agents, cholesterol, corn, colloids, dairy, gluten, or wheat products, fat fillers, eggs, herbicides, nuts, pesticides, shellfish, starches, and soy. And if they're not certified to be free of those, then they're not going to truly be hyperallergenic. And if they're not hyperallergenic, then they have a high propensity of causing allergic reactions within your body. And very often, the symptoms you have, you're not aware that it's because of some vitamin or mineral you're taking that is not hyperallergenic. Now, we're going to look at, Dr. Jensen is going to begin looking at the downside of potential toxic minerals. So we have heavy metals or toxic minerals, and we're going to begin looking at them because they are pollutants. They cause death and disease within the human body. Dr. Jensen.
Thank you, Dr. Lala. Well, all of these toxic pollutants, particularly in the metals, can be regarded as a source of free radicals, so that they're changing our aging process in our body and causing different sources of disease that can be traced back to free radicals. But also, a lot of them are allegories to some of the good minerals that are supposed to be in the body. And what they'll do is they'll put themselves in the place of that, and therefore changing or even stopping some of the chemical reactions that can take place. Let's take a look at what some of these are. Types of toxic pollutants that we find are aluminum, antimony, arsenic, beryllium, bismuth, cadmium, lead, mercury, platinum, thallium, thorium, silver, manganese, tellurium, vanadium, zinc, iron, gold, gallium, copper, cobalt. Now, as we go through this list, there might be some of these that are in here that you find are actually good for you, like copper is good, zinc is good, vanadium is good, manganese is good, but it's in the correct ratios that you need in your body. You need only so much. There are some diseases that are characterized by too much of a buildup of copper in the body, or too much of a buildup of iron in the body. So as we look through this list, you might see some of those as like, well, wait a minute, I thought that was good for you. Yeah, some of it is good, but too much is too much. And so we find them found in our environment in ways that, in chemicals, that are biologically active. If you look at it in today's day and age, we come up with 200 new chemicals each day that are put into the environment that were not there biologically, that were not, should we say, created by God to be in our environment, and therefore our biological system is not made to handle them as it should. The list goes on. Uranium, nickel, silver, tin, titanium, cerium, chromium, some hormones. There's xenoestrogens that are out there. These are chemically created hormones that, or should I say, chemicals that are created by industry that are hormone-like reactive within our body. Herbicides can be part of that as well, and pesticides can also do that. So some of the sources of heavy metals, we can find that some of our vitamins can have some of these trace elements of these heavy metals within them. Or the minerals, there can be some contaminants within that, which is also quite possible. Homeopathic remedies, essential oils can carry this. Toothpaste can carry this. Deodorants. Deodorants, one of the things that, one of the most active ingredients within deodorants is aluminum. And we find by placing them over our sweat glands that they're being absorbed into the body. Cosmetics, household industrial cleaning products, automobile exhaust, industrial emissions, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, drugs, contaminated foods in grown contaminated oil. We've seen where people have had uranium poisoning by cleaning products that are in their house. It's uric acid, which contains uranium. We have little or no idea of the cleanliness of the soil and the foods that we purchase, just because we don't know where they're coming from. So Let's also look at what is a free radical. We talked about how these things can be free radicals. What are they? It's an unbalanced molecule with an old unpaired electron. All heavy metals are free radicals, okay? They're electrically reactive within the body. That causes damage to the brain, nervous systems, lungs, kidneys, liver, and other vital organs. It's any type of structure that has that are electron rich or proton rich areas. We're getting right down into the chemical. It can mimic Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. So free radicals are warehoused or stored in cells, organs, and body systems, bones, muscles, ligaments, hormones, brain, and nervous systems. In fact, we find a lot of times cancerous cells can be inundated with free radicals on the inside of them, which has changed the DNA. DNA are subject to free radical problems. There's 5 times the specific gravity of water, and when that occurs, other molecules then become free radicals themselves, and they go on to attack mode in other molecules. And it comes by, the first structure it comes by, tag, you're it. Now you're a free radical, and you go on and you create all these other problems as well. It attempts to balance itself by bombarding other molecules in the body in an effort to capture or steal other molecules' electrons. So they're attracted to these other electrical potentials. They find it, they grab it, and then that becomes a free radical. It's like the old game of tag, except you end up with more and more of those people who are it going out and tagging and creating more damage because it changes the chemical structures or reactivity within the body, therefore changing what your metabolism will be, and sometimes have very many deleterious effects. Okay, signs of free radical activities. These are the deleterious effects, folks. It's cancer, cognitive dissonance, poor circulation or arterial or atherosclerosis can be occurred by this, muscle cramps, vomiting, fatigue, muscle, joint, and back pain, headaches, and excessive sweating. So conditions related to free radical activities would be cardiovascular diseases, convulsions, learning difficulties, nausea, lethargy, tremors, asthma, candidiasis, arthritis, depression, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and fibromyalgia. So when we look at this, we're looking at symptoms versus wellness. And Dr. Lala, do you have some comments on that?
Yes, the absence of symptoms does not necessarily indicate the presence of wellness. So even though I feel fine sitting here in front of you, it doesn't necessarily mean that internally my body is well. And so a lot of people then think if they don't have any symptoms, they're well, or if the symptoms are not real bad, or if it goes away with some over-the-counter analgesic, NSAID, then they must be well. Well, what they're in fact doing when they're using an NSAID is they're doing the same thing as putting frosting on top of a burnt cake. So as Dr. Jensen was talking about here, many of the cardiovascular diseases, convulsions or epileptic seizures, learning difficulties, repeated nausea, lethargy, tremors, asthma, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, arthritis, persistent depression, multiple sclerosis, neuropathy, fibromyalgia, many of the chronic back and joint patients that we see as doctors of chiropractic really are related in part to free radical activities that have really accumulated over a period of time in their body. So again, symptoms versus wellness. The absence of symptoms does not necessarily indicate the presence of wellness. So it is far better to stay well than wait to get sick. And we can do that by doing analysis of our blood to see what our vitamin mineral levels are, so we are bioidentifying our individual biochemical nature through certain blood tests, through hair biopsies, through urine tests, etc. So we're going to start looking at these toxic elements now, and Dr. Jensen is going to take the first one.
Thank you, Dr. Lala. Well, the first one is aluminum. And of course, we find aluminum. We use it all the time in our cooking, in containers for our drinks, for many chemical sources. So first of all, we're going to look at the sources of aluminum and then the symptoms that can be created by excessive aluminum in the body. First of all, it's generally eliminated by the GI or the urinary tract. However, the first thing to reducing the aluminum in our body is to avoid its sources. Well, some sources are food, of course, with pesticides and things being put on them, hair dyes, antiperspirants. Remember how we talked about how that can, you're applying it right over your lymphatic glands, basically in your armpits to stop from perspiring. And then it gets into your circulation. Cosmetics contain aluminum. Cooking utensils. Anti-diarrhea meds can contain aluminum. Water can contain aluminum. Baking powder. And in dialysis, they use some aluminum hydroxide gels that contain aluminum, of course, and can get that into your bloodstream. Symptoms of increased aluminum: constipation, nausea, loss of appetite, numbness, fatigue, senile dementia, or Alzheimer's disease. Both of those can be mistaken for each other too. Parkinson's disease, ataxia, or the inability to talk. It's the slurred speech. Excessive perspiration is a problem also. How about antimony, Dr. Lala?
Antimony is another toxic metal on the atomic chart. Its symbol is Sb. The primary sources of it are fruits, vegetables, green peppers, maple syrup, nuts. Some of the conditions are related to enzymes. The enzymes in the body are not functioning correctly. So for example, our pancreas produces an enzyme called insulin. If I have an excess of this chemical, it is going to interfere with my body's or my pancreas's ability to produce insulin. If that becomes the case, then I'm going to be predisposed to hypoglycemia initially, and ultimately that hypoglycemia will in all probably turn into hyperglycemia or diabetes mellitus. Heart disease, kidney disease, and liver disease. 2 or 3 other enzymes that are produced by the pancreas are pancreatic lipase, which is an enzyme that digests fat, pancreatic protease, an enzyme that digests protein, and pancreatic amylase, an enzyme that digests carbohydrates. So if I have excess levels of this chemical in my body, it is greatly going to interfere with not only the function of my heart, of my liver, of my kidneys, as well as my pancreas, which is going to predispose me to not only diabetes and hypoglycemia, but it's going to predispose me to health problems related to either obesity or anorexia. So that's very interesting. So if we go back and look at where would it come from, certain fruits? No. Fruits that are grown in toxic soils, vegetables that are grown in toxic soils, green peppers, vegetables there, maple syrup, trees where they get maple syrup from, and of course nuts. And again, you don't know if where that maple syrup is coming from. You don't know many of the vegetables that are sold in the grocery stores in America now come from Mexico and Chile and Brazil and other countries. We have no idea of the soil, the health of that soil. Is it polluted with toxins or not? The government doesn't require testing of that soil. Those food products aren't tested when they come into this country, but they put them in our stores. We don't know if they're polluted or not, right?
Right, and of course you're looking at increased amounts of that kind of chemical if those things are planted near smelting plants and things like that that would use that.
That's exactly right. How about the toxic metal arsenic?
Arsenic sources again would be in the soils, looking at the condition of the soil. It can be found in water or foods grown near those smelting plants. What does it cause? It causes pigmentation problems in the skin called alopecia with increased arsenic. It suppresses iodine and selenium in the body interesting thing is that selenium is a huge antioxidant in the body, and iodine is used for your energy. It's used by your thyroid gland to help your metabolism. Really, they talk about conditions for arsenic. One of the big things that they talk about is death, for one, arsenic poisoning. But it's found at lower levels. It's found in bone marrow depression, anemia, leukopenia, which is a reduced white blood cell count, neuropathies, neuritis, lung and skin cancer, exfoliation of the skin, so it's flaking off more, alopecia, again, which is the pigmentation, kidney disease, and liver disease. And interestingly enough, when they're looking at therapeutics for arsenic, they want to give you antioxidants such as vitamin C and E, give you calcium and selenium. Like I said, it suppresses selenium. And sulfur-containing amino acids, which helps you to get rid of the excessive arsenic through your liver detoxification processes. How about beryllium, Dr. Lala?
Beryllium, the symbol is Be on the atomic chart. Common sources are tobacco smoke, the nuclear industries, metal processing, oils, paint, telecommunication industries, aeronautical industries, and computer manufacture. Wow. Just think of the beryllium that we're being exposed to with people who are in those manufacturing industries. What are some of the common conditions? Look at that. Lung and liver disease, in other words, lung and liver cancer. So with the proliferation of the manufacture in telecommunications, computer and manufacture, we're going to see a lot more lung and liver cancer. It's going to really become a serious issue. And again, either using tobacco products ourselves or allowing ourselves to be around people who do smoke and produce tobacco products, we're destroying our health. That's their choice to destroy their health, but I got a choice. I don't have to be around them. Nuclear industries, I mean, where there's nuclear plants, hey, we need electricity. It's cheap when it's produced by nuclear plants. Supposedly it's cheap. Not the amount of money it takes to build them isn't cheap. But again, there's pollution in that air and that water. I don't care how well you try and control it, you have those type of issues. Same thing with metal processing, oil and paint manufacturing. There's a lot of pollution there, And so we have to be very careful of these things. What does all say? Well, how can I control these things? Certainly if I stay away from industries or people who are producing these toxins and pollutions. Certainly if I try to eat organically grown vegetables and fruits. Certainly if I'm trying to eat, if I'm not a vegetarian, then I'm eating animal products that are certified, that they're hormone free, that they're pesticide and herbicide free. Certainly that's important. And there are those products there. They are there, and we can do that. We don't have to go by the ads in the Sunday paper where they're trying to sell foods to get you into the store, and they are not organically certified. And when it comes to organic, another thing is I don't care where that's growing, there is pollution in the rain that comes down on those products. So they may be organic, they may be pesticide and herbicide and hormone free as far as the soil is concerned, as far as the farmer is concerned, but that rain still has pollution. So do what you can to have good, healthy products. Be careful of what you put into your body. Be very, very careful. You only have one body, and you want to live long life and good health. You really do.
House Call TV has been brought to you by the Fellowship of the Great Physician. For further information, please call at 651-484-8521 or visit our website at www.housecalltv.org. Until next time, thank you for listening to House Call.